Ladies and gentlemen, let's for a Gaming video. Let us discuss DirectX 12 for the Xbox One. So, I've made my thoughts fairly clear about this previously, but there's recently been a very short article posted on Gaming Bolt regarding this, and it basically was discussing the potential of Granite when used with DX11.2 Plus, and particularly moving on to DX12. And anyway, the CEO stated that DX12 continues to build on 11.1 Plus, and as such also includes a tiled resources feature. DX12, however, is closer to metal and gives more control to the developer. This allows us to further optimize our tiling back end for DX12 and takes care of loading texture tiles into video memory. Also, we get more access to how data is stored in video memory, which is very important to us. Specifically, for our tiling backend, we expect performance increase compared to DX11.1, but we don't have any hard numbers yet. So, end quote and all, one of my thoughts on this, well, the fact that there's no numbers kind of worries me. The problem is, I would like to know just what type of optimizations we're going to get, because obviously they're referring to video memory here, and all I can assume is it's somewhat of a generic answer, if I'm totally honest. I mean, sure, DX12 does continue to build on 11.1 and tiled resources and so on, and closer to the metal and everything else, but a lot of this is really going to benefit the PC. What I'd love to hear from, particularly from Microsoft rather than anyone else, I'd love to hear how they feel it's going to benefit the Xbox One in terms of close to the metal. Now, here's the thing. What's the difference between DX11.1 Plus and for the Xbox One and DX12? Because I've actually heard some rumors that DX12 for the PC is actually inspired quite a bit accordingly from the Xbox One's DirectX. Interestingly enough as well, John Shearing, he helped create Titanfall, said, "We don't know much about DX12 yet, but we don't need to do DX12 to do some of our performance fixes. It's on our list." What I'd really love to see on some various game engines, particularly the more modern ones, for example, Unreal Engine 4, and I'd love to see it on maybe the latest builds of CryEngine and so on. I'd love to see a comparison in terms of how the different threads are, especially the rendering threads, are actually spread out across the various CPUs. This is actually one of the things that DirectX 12 is going to be fixing on the PC. As you know, a lot of work is actually laid in just a single thread, a single core. So, for example, let's say your system has 4 CPU cores. You know, a lot of the rendering is just going to be done on the first core, which is a bit of a problem. Obviously, that means you're going to get quite a lot of bottlenecks, and that's why we're getting a lot of draw call issues. Now, definitely one of the major benefits we're going to be seeing, of course, is regarding porting and compatibility. And Microsoft have stated that it's going to make it a lot easier to port titles over. Another point of contention from a lot of people in the industry right now is what exactly we're going to be seeing DirectX 12 bringing to the table in terms of new features. Microsoft are remaining really tight-lipped on this, and they've released a couple of slides. I've done a DirectX 12. You can search for it on the channel or on the website. It's up to you, or you can find it yourselves. And I've actually drilled down into a lot of this, but there are a couple of extras that Microsoft have mentioned, but they don't really go heavily into detail, primarily on compression side of things. And here's the thing, the architectures of the GPUs, as far as we know right now anyway, don't really support it. You'd think that they know what's going on in the GPU industry. In other words, they obviously are privy to more information than what we are. So in other words, by what I mean by that, Microsoft are obviously designing DX12 for the future, but that means, in theory, that even if you were to give Microsoft the benefit of the doubt and say that it's based on the GCN, the latest GCN architecture that's currently available, 1.1 or whatever, that still, as far as we understand it, just don't have those features. But once again, a lot of this is up in the air. In terms of performance, however, it's likely we're going to be seeing closer to the metal, yes, but how much closer remains to be seen. I'm really curious about DX12. From the perspective of the PC, I really wasn't liking Microsoft and their indecision. It felt like indecision anyway, with the DirectX, because it felt like, to be honest, they were just kind of holding it back, and it wasn't really good for the PC gaming industry at all. But now, of course, they're starting to push forward, and I'm really happy about that. I'm happy they're recommitting themselves to PC gaming. But let's face it, it's only helping them in the long run. And certainly, if the only thing that benefits the Xbox One is easier porting, that's not really a bad thing. Hopefully, it will just streamline the process. I don't think this is going to be a situation where the Xbox One is suddenly going to go from like 720p to like 1080p with the same graphics or anything like that. But what it will do, obviously, hopefully, is give developers a bit more control over the system. I'm most curious to see, though. I mean, one of the apparent changes for DX11, according to the developers for the Xbox One, was they basically took DirectX 11, made it more game console-like. In other words, they basically made it more multi-core orientated, because obviously, if you were to take a one-to-one comparison, that's one Jaguar core versus something like an i5, the Jaguar core gets absolutely massacred. It's nowhere near as high performance. Despite the fact that it's quite optimized and great at branch prediction and great at kind of guessing what's going to be happening next, it's still nowhere near that powerful. So it has to be fairly multi-threaded, you'd expect. So I guess we're just going to have to kind of see on this one. Anyway, I thought I'd report it anyway. It's not particularly a huge piece of news, but since as well the devs of Titanfall also kind of spoke out about this respawn, I figured it'd be worth touching upon. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.